everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paola, and today I have the incredible Ava Reid with me. Hi, Ava. I'm so excited that you're here on the channel. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about The Wolf and the Woodsman.
So, obviously, I'm Ava Reid, the author of The Wolf and The Woodsman, which is my adult epic fantasy debut with some kind of literary leaning elements. My kind of elevator pitch for it is it's got an enemies to lovers romance, lots of religious angst, body horror. It's inspired by medieval Hungarian history, Jewish mythology. So yeah, that's what it's got.
It's a great book, so you should definitely check it out. It is out now wherever books are sold, so I will leave a link down below so that you can get it. I'm thrilled to have Ava on the channel. Can you tell us what inspired you to write this story?
So actually, at my launch event last night with Rebecca Kwong, she was talking about how all her stories kind of have like a germ, and then the germ kind of spreads to something else. So my germ was this. I was just down this like weird Wikipedia rabbit hole, when you're just going from hyperlink to hyperlink. Anyway, so I was reading about Saint Stephen, who was the first Christian king of Hungary. And he was born a pagan, but he converted to Christianity. And all of his biological children died before they became of age. So his heir apparent was his nephew, but his nephew was still a pagan, and he didn't want a pagan to inherit the throne. So he had his nephew's eyes stabbed out. And like this was just a kind of like throwaway sentence, and anyone who's read the book will like understand why this is what inspired it. But it was kind of this just like throwaway sentence, but that like image really just stuck with me because it was just like so visceral and brutal, and like it just made me want to create a world where something like that could happen. That was my germ that kind of spread and expanded into an entire book.
I love that, and I love how gory it is.
Yes.
I love that. I
Yeah,
am
it's
a
a
big
very
fan.
gory book.
Speaking of your Wikipedia rabbit hole, what was the research process like, and what was your favorite thing about it?
It was really fun. I did a lot of research about kind of Hungary in the high Middle Ages when this stuff was kind of taking place. Another thing that Rebecca said in our event last night was that she basically, because she's a full-time student as well as a full-time writer, is like she'll always write books that are kind of like inspired by or based on what she's studying. So her studying is like also research for her books. And that was kind of true for me too, because while I'm not like a proper academic, I studied religion and ethnic nationalism in my undergrad degree. So classwork was also research for my book because I read people like Benedict Anderson and Charles Tilly about state building and identity and nation, and things like that. And that was a big part of my research process, as well as just reading, historical monographs. I read a lot of like medieval Hungarian ballads, which were really fun and like really, really bizarre. This story actually makes its way into the book in one form or the other. It's a story about this knight. He's described as like an errant knight. I don't know what the original is. That's the translation. And he takes this woman, he seduces her, and they go sit under a citrus tree, and she like gets the feeling that something's kind of off, and she looks up and she sees the heads of like all these other women that he's seduced. So he's just like this medieval serial killer of women. And like I don't know why this is a ballad, but that was one of the things I read that like also stuck with me. And again, if you've read the book, you can see where that kind of makes its way in.
How is that a ballad? I don't. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, what occasion was that like sung? Like,
So this is the fill in the blank section. So the first book I ever loved was
when I was really, really young, before I was reading like proper chapter books. I had this, it was like a picture book called Baba Yaga and the Little Girl, and it was absolutely terrifying. Like the art style, I think it's by a woman named Katya Arnold. I looked it up recently because I just remembered it. And it's the most terrifying looking picture book ever. Like, I don't know why it's for children. Like, the illustration style is just really, really scary because it's based on like Russian Lubot carvings. I was obsessed with that book when I was really, really young, but it's kind of like nightmare fuel. But the first like proper chapter book that I finished and loved was, I think, Charlotte's Web.
The first book I bought with my own money was
Definitely one of the Warriors books by Aaron Hunter, it's a middle grade series. I think it's actually still being published about like bands of feral cats. It's like Watership Down, but with cats, and like it's like grimdark fantasy, but cats. Like I was obsessed with those books when I was in like elementary and middle school, which I think says a lot about me and my like journey to becoming a writer. But yeah, those were my favorite books for a really long time.
I love how it's, your brand.
Yes, from day one.
My first book idea was?
I honestly don't remember, but I was born in 1995, which is like right kind of between like millennial and Gen Z. So I really grew up in like the age of the internet. So I'm sure that my first book idea was just like Harry Potter fan fiction. And I think that's true, I think, of a lot of people of my kind of like age. We grew up so immersed in like the fan community because it was really accessible to us. I mean, everyone had their like family PC that they went on like fanfiction.net. Only 90s kids remember before we had Archive of our own. Yeah, so I'm sure my first book was some Harry Potter fanfiction or something like that.
I love that, and I love that you count fanfic as your first book idea.
Snaps. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, like for my age group, I think fanfic was where so many of us got and I know just from my friends, like it was where so many of us got our start as writers.
The song that reminds me the most of my book is?
I actually have a really good answer for this one because I listened to the song over and over again. It's When the Night Is Over by Lord Huron. It's an amazing song. And I have like super long playlists for all of the books that I write. Yeah, that one's the main one.
I love that. I'm so interested by like what songs inspire people to write.
Yeah, music is a huge part of my writing process. I have like 750 liked songs on Spotify. Like when I'm like stuck when drafting, I'll just walk around and listen to music, which is why I have like so many songs that in all my books that are like heavily associated with certain scenes or certain characters or whatever. Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. I wanna be in your mind for a day. Like that's amazing.
Well, I tell my friends that my love language is playlist because whenever I get a new book from like one of my critique partners, the first thing I do is make a playlist for it.
I love that. Oh my God, Ava, that is amazing. How do I become your critique partner? I want it.
I get so excited every time I get a new book because I'm like, yes, I can make a playlist now.
If you were a book, what section of the bookstore would you live in?
Oh my God, I don't know. I mean, the obvious answer is the sci-fi and fantasy section, but honestly, I always love that part of the bookstore where it's like up by the register and they just have all the weird little like book themed knickknacks. I don't know. I like that section. Like they have like little book themed stuffed animals. I don't even know if they have this anymore, but I remember when I was a kid going to the bookstore and they'd have like little Paddington bears and stuff like that.
I love that. No one has ever answered a non-book thing related. Like I love that you like were outside of the box and be like, I want to be or I would be in the knickknack section. What is something that you would like your readers to take away from your book?
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be too like, this is the message, but I guess I would just want them to kind of realize that all fantasy is political, even if people don't necessarily think that they're writing a political book. And it's like kind of unfortunate that marginalized people writing fantasy get pigeonholed as being inherently political, just by virtue of the fact that we're not writing like Western European inspired fantasy. But those books are political too. If you write a fantasy book about, that's vaguely Western European medieval setting, but that's entirely, ethnically homogenous, that's a political choice that you're making that's not at all reflective of history, and is very much reflective of your position in society, as part of the majority in group. And, So I would hope that people just, I don't know, maybe start to question things like that after reading my book.
I love that. Was that always your, like, the thing that you had in mind when you were writing it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my degree is in political science,
Yeah.
so that's always where my head is at. But yeah, I mean, I think that when you want to include Jewish characters in your fantasy book, you don't really have a choice about whether or not you're political, just
Mm-hmm.
because the typical fantasy kind of construction of the world is these homogenous countries. Every character feels patriotic. They're like, I'll die for my country.
Yeah.
That's like half of the plots of like fantasy books is like people who want to die for their country. But if you write Jewish characters, that's just not realistic. So I think that I had a desire to be political, but it was also just the nature of wanting to write Jewish characters in my book.
Speaking of academia and stuff, tell us about your upcoming books because you just announced the title of one of them. So,
Yes. Yeah, so Studying Drowning is my young adult debut, and it's, I guess, aesthetic of dark academia, but it's just a mystery. I was inspired by anti-Stratfordian theory, which, if you don't know, is basically the theory that Shakespeare was not the author of the works attributed to him, that it was actually Francis Bacon or some other guy. And this is like a complete crackpot theory that no one actually believes. But for a long time, this was actually something that a lot of like actual intellectuals really believed. And they went to really extreme lengths to prove it. Like they dug up people's graves and like opened their crypts, like thinking that there were like hidden documents there. Like it was crazy the lengths that people went to. And I've always been a huge fan of Shakespeare. So this theory is always like something really interesting to me. And like the idea of attribution and like the way that we idolize authors. The main characters are college students who are basically trying to prove that their national author was actually a fraud. So that's the mystery aspect. And it's also a romance. I would say that it's the first like real romance that I've written. Like obviously The Wolf and The Woodsman has a strong romantic element, but wouldn't really call it a romance. But Studying Drowning is, so I'm really excited about that.
can you tell us like the trope that's in it?
Oh
Love.
yeah, it's definitely like academic rivals to lovers. The love interest is very snobby, like English major. It's really fun to write. And my partner is an academic and I
Mhm.
live at a university. So I'm surrounded by academics all the time, smug academics all the time. So
I like that, and I read your post on Instagram about
mhm.
the Shakespeare theory. I didn't know that people took it that seriously. That they went
Yeah.
to dug up graves and stuff.
I don't know. These people they were weird people, but this theory actually had a lot of credence for a really long time. It's kind of crazy to me. And it was all
Mm-hmm.
based on classism because they didn't
Mm-hmm.
think that someone like Shakespeare, who wasn't from nobility, could write things that were so, I don't know, meaningful and enduring. And I think that was another element that really interested me. It was like, why were these people trying to tear down his legacy? Why did he threaten them?
That's very interesting, and I love that became a book. Like I'm so interested in reading A Study in Drowning. Everyone should also be interested in reading A Study in
I
Drowning,
hope
especially.
so. It was fun to write for a YA audience.
Thank you, Ava, so much for joining me today. I am honored that you are part of my channel now.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
Thank you, everyone else, for watching. Don't forget to check out the description below for links where you can buy The Wolf and the Woodsman and also on how you can support Ava. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in another one. Bye.
Bye.